Her billionaire husband threw her and their son out for his mistress, but what his son did next made him fall to his knees. The sound echoed through the mansion like a gunshot, the sharp crack of a 14-year-old's hand connecting with a woman's face. But this wasn't just any woman. This was his father's mistress, and what she had just said, what she had just offered, made his blood boil in a way he didn't know was possible. "You want my mother to do what?" Levi's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before an explosion. Camille touched her reddening cheek, her perfectly manicured hand trembling slightly. "It's a generous offer," she said, her voice tight. "Most ex-wives get nothing. Your mother would have a job, a salary, access to the house she clearly loves. As your maid." Levi took a step closer. "You want my mother, who designed every room in this house, who chose every piece of furniture, who spent 14 years building a life here, to clean your toilets, to wash your sheets, to serve you meals in the kitchen she planned. Is that right?" "It's practical," Camille said, but her voice wavered. "It's sadistic, and you just made the biggest mistake of your life." What this boy did next didn't just destroy his father's empire. It brought a billionaire to his knees, and it all started with a cut. A simple kitchen accident that revealed a wound much deeper than blood. Have you ever watched someone you love disappear right in front of your eyes? Not physically. They're still there, still breathing, still going through the motions. But the light behind their eyes dims a little more each day. Their laughter becomes rare, then forced, then extinct. Their presence in a room shifts from vibrant to ghostly. They're there, but they're not there. And the worst part is watching them accept it, watching them shrink and fade and convince themselves that this is normal, that this is love, that this is what marriage looks like. Tracy Bailey had been disappearing for 3 years, and her 14-year-old son had been keeping count. The knife slipped, and Tracy watched her own blood bloom across the cutting board like a strange, terrible flower. She didn't cry out, didn't gasp, didn't move. She just stared at the red spreading between the carrot slices she'd been cutting for a dinner her husband wouldn't eat. Again. The kitchen around her was perfect. She'd designed it herself 5 years ago. Marble countertops imported from Italy. Professional-grade appliances that cost more than most people's cars. Custom cabinets in a shade of cream she'd spent weeks selecting. She remembered being excited about it. Remembered showing Christian the design plans, talking about hosting dinner parties, teaching their son to cook in this space. Now that excitement felt like it belonged to a different person, a different life, a different Tracy who still believed her husband saw her as something more than furniture. "Mom." Levi stood in the kitchen doorway. His backpack still hung over one shoulder. Those gray eyes, his father's eyes, went wide when he saw the blood. But everything else about him, the heart, the fierce protectiveness, the capacity to see people, that was all hers. "It's nothing, baby, just clumsy." But they both knew she was never clumsy. Tracy Bailey had spent her entire marriage being perfect. Perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect shadow behind a man who'd forgotten she cast one. Precision had become her survival mechanism. If she never made mistakes, maybe Christian would notice her again. Maybe he'd remember why he married her. Maybe he'd come home for dinner. Maybe he'd sleep in their bed instead of the guest room. Maybe he'd look at her the way he used to. It hadn't worked. Levi crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. He grabbed her hand and wrapped it in a dish towel, his touch gentle but firm. Something about the role reversal, her 14-year-old son caring for her like she was the fragile one, made her throat tighten. "When's the last time you slept?" he asked. "I sleep. When's the last time you slept in your own bed? Not the couch, not the chair in my room when you think I don't notice you checking on me." Tracy pulled her hand away, busying herself with cleaning the blood off the cutting board. The white marble showed every stain. She'd learned to clean quickly, efficiently, erasing evidence before Christian came home and commented on the mess. If he came home at all, "Your father likes the guest room. It's closer to his office. My father hasn't touched you in 3 months. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and true and terrible. Tracy felt her face flush with shame that her son had noticed what she'd been pretending didn't exist. "Levi, that's inappropriate." What's inappropriate is him coming home smelling like someone else and expecting us to pretend everything's normal. Levi's voice cracked. That awful space between boy and man where rage couldn't quite find its footing. What's inappropriate is you standing here making his favorite dinner when he hasn't shown up for a family meal in weeks. Tracy wanted to defend Christian, wanted to explain about pressure and responsibility and how marriage was complicated, how building an empire required sacrifice, how she needed to be patient, understanding, supportive. But she was so tired of being the translator for a man who'd stopped speaking her language. The excuses wouldn't come anymore. They'd finally run dry. The steak sat on the counter, perfectly marbled, expensive. She'd driven to 3 different stores to find the exact cut Christian preferred, had planned the meal around his schedule, his preferences, his existence. When had she stopped existing, except in service to him? He's building something important, sweetheart. We have to be patient. He built something important. You, me, this family. And he's throwing it away for what? Late nights at the office. Mystery perfume. That new assistant who looks at him like he's God. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what I see. And I see you disappearing. Levi's voice dropped to something that hurt worse than shouting. Every day, you're less loud, less present, less you. And he doesn't even notice, because he's too busy being more. The truth of it knocked the air from her lungs. When had she become less? When had she started speaking softer, wanting smaller, apologizing for taking up space in her own life? She used to have opinions, strong ones. She used to laugh loudly and dance in the kitchen and take up space without asking permission. She used to be someone. Now she was a ghost in her own house. The front door opened. Christian Norman filled the doorway the way he filled every room. Expensive suit, expensive cologne, expensive everything except the attention he paid to the people who'd loved him when he was nobody. Something smells good, he said, loosening his tie without looking at either of them. It's your favorite. Steak, medium rare, garlic roasted potatoes. Already ate. Client dinner ran late. He grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, checked his phone, existed in their space without actually being present. Don't wait up. I have calls. Tracy felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. She'd been breaking for months. This was smaller. The final splinter before the whole structure collapsed. Christian, it's family dinner night. It's Tuesday, Tracy. I don't have time for arbitrary schedules. Family dinner isn't arbitrary. To you, to me, it's wasted time when I could be working. He finally looked at her, and his eyes held nothing. Not love, not even guilt, just mild annoyance at being questioned. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the empire I'm building. Someone has to sacrifice. Someone is me. Every single day. Christian blinked like she'd spoken a language he didn't recognize. What's that supposed to mean? It means I gave up my career for yours, raised our son while you chased success, organized your life, your events, your entire world while my own got smaller and smaller. And now, you can't even show up for dinner. She heard the desperation in her voice. Hated it. Hated that she was begging for scraps of attention from a man who used to worship her presence, who used to call her in the middle of meetings just to hear her voice, who used to come home early just to spend time with her. That man was gone, had been gone for years, and she'd been performing for a ghost. Jesus, Tracy, one missed dinner, and you're acting like I committed murder. He looked at Levi. Your mother's being dramatic. Hormones or something. The dismissal was so casual, it felt like a slap. Tracy opened her mouth to respond, but Levi spoke first. Get out. Christian's expression shifted from annoyed to incredulous. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of this kitchen. Out of this moment. Go make your calls. Chase your empire. Just stop pretending you're part of this family when you clearly don't want to be. Levi, you don't talk to me like that. The way you talk to Mom, with contempt and dismissal. Levi stepped between his parents, small for his age, but burning with protective fury. You're right. I should be better than that. She made your favorite meal again because she loves you. Again, and you can't even sit down for 20 minutes. Can't even pretend you care. I'm not having this conversation with a teenager. Then have it with your wife. Actually have it. Look at her. Levi's voice cracked. And notice that she's breaking, and you're the one holding the hammer. Christian's jaw tightened. For a moment, Tracy saw something flash in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Shame, possibly. But then his phone buzzed, and whatever humanity had surfaced disappeared. I don't have time for this drama. Tracy, tell your son to respect his father. I'll be in the guest room. He left. No apology, no second glance. Just gone, like they were inconvenient furniture in a house he'd already moved out of emotionally. Tracy stood frozen, blood still seeping through the dish towel wrapped around her hand. She felt the full weight of her own erasure. 14 years of marriage, a lifetime of devotion, and she'd become wallpaper, present but unnoticed, decorative but disposable. Mom, Levi's voice shattered her paralysis. Talk to me, please. She looked at her son and saw reflected in his face everything she'd been denying. The truth she'd been too scared to speak out loud. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. I built my entire life around being his wife, being your mother, and now he's gone even when he's here, and you're growing up, and I'm just... Her voice broke. I'm just empty space where a person used to be. Levi pulled her into a hug, and Tracy let herself be held by her child. Let herself cry silently into his shoulder while the steak grew cold and the candle she'd lit burned down to nothing. You're not empty, Mom. You're compressed. All that light you had, you've been trying to dim it so he could shine brighter. But you don't disappear when you're compressed. You just become denser, more powerful. He pulled back, holding her face in his hands with a tenderness that broke her. And when you finally let yourself expand again, you're going to be brighter than he ever was. What if I don't know how? Then, we figure it out together. But Mom, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep pretending he's the man you married. That man is gone. Or maybe he never existed. Levi's voice hardened with certainty beyond his years. And we deserve better than ghosts. Upstairs, Christian's voice carried through the ceiling. Smooth, charming, fully present for whoever was on the other end of that phone call. The version of himself he saved for people who weren't guaranteed to stay. Tracy unwrapped the towel from her hand. The bleeding had stopped, leaving behind a clean slice across her palm. A wound that would heal but scar. A reminder that sometimes damage started with the smallest slip. What do we do? She asked her son. This beautiful boy, who shouldn't have to be strong for her. Levi looked toward the stairs where his father had disappeared, then back at his mother with eyes full of love and unspoken war. We survive him, Levi said quietly. And then we make sure he knows exactly what he threw away. But Tracy had no idea how bad things were about to get. Because 3 weeks later, Christian didn't just leave her. He erased her. In front of everyone who mattered. The Riverside Gala was Tracy's creation. She'd started it 8 years ago. A small charity event to raise money for children's literacy programs. Over the years, she'd grown it into one of the most prestigious events in the city. She'd courted donors, planned every detail, built relationships with sponsors and press. The gala was the one thing that was still hers, the one place where people saw Tracy Bailey, not just Christian Norman's wife. She stood in front of her closet, looking at the emerald dress she'd chosen months ago. It was beautiful, elegant, the kind of dress that made you feel powerful. She needed that tonight, needed to feel like someone, even if it was just for a few hours. Levi appeared in her doorway, already dressed in his suit. He looked so grown up it made her heart ache. You look nice, baby. You look beautiful, Mom. He's an idiot if he doesn't see it. She smiled, but it felt fragile. Christian had left early, said he'd meet her there. Another sign she'd chosen to ignore. The venue looked perfect. The flowers she'd spent weeks selecting. The lighting she'd tested 3 times. The table arrangements she'd obsessed over. Everything was exactly as she'd envisioned. This was hers, her work, her success. Night. Tracy moved through the crowd, greeting donors, thanking sponsors, playing the role she'd perfected over years. People smiled at her, complimented the event, told her how wonderful everything looked. For a moment, she felt like herself again. Like Tracy Bailey, the woman who built things. The woman who mattered. Then she felt it. A shift in the energy of the room. Whispers spreading like wildfire. People turning to look at the stage. At Christian, who stood there with a microphone. And beside him, a woman Tracy had never seen before. Young, late 20s maybe, beautiful in that deliberate, high-maintenance way. Her dress was stunning, her hair perfect, her smile practiced, and Christian's hand rested on her waist with casual ownership that he hadn't shown Tracy in years. Tracy's stomach dropped. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," Christian said, his voice smooth and confident. "This event, started by my wife Tracy 8 years ago, has become something truly special. And tonight, I'm here to make it even more special by sharing some personal news." The room went silent. Tracy felt Levi appear beside her, his hand finding hers. "This is Camille Brooke," Christian continued, pulling the woman closer. "My partner, in business, and in life. In our modern world, why limit love to outdated constructs? I've been blessed with unprecedented success, and I want to share my life fully with the woman who stood beside me at the beginning." He gestured vaguely in Tracy's direction without actually looking at her. "And the woman who inspires my future." He kissed Camille on stage. On Tracy's stage, in Tracy's ballroom, surrounded by Tracy's flowers and Tracy's aesthetic and Tracy's 8 years of labor. The room exploded. Gasps like gunshots, whispers sharp as knives. Someone's champagne glass shattered against marble. Camera flashes erupted like lightning. People pulled out phones. This would be online before Tracy made it to her car. Camille looked directly at her from the stage, made eye contact across the crowd, smiled with surgical precision. This wasn't accidental humiliation. This was orchestrated. This was meant to destroy, and it was working. "Mom," Levi's voice was tight with barely contained fury. "We're leaving, right now." But Tracy's legs wouldn't move. She stood frozen, while people turned to stare at her with expressions ranging from pity to schadenfreude to carefully blank faces that would fuel gossip for months. She saw Sarah, her supposed friend, whispering behind her hand to another woman. Saw Michael, a donor she'd cultivated for 3 years, shaking his head. Saw the reporter from the Tribune, typing furiously on his phone. Her entire social circle, her network, her world, watching her public execution. "Come on." Levi wrapped his arm around her waist, physically supporting her weight. "Service exit, now." He guided her through the crowd like a bodyguard, shielding her from cameras and questions and the wreckage of her public execution. People tried to stop them, to ask questions, to offer hollow sympathies that were really just attempts to get closer to the drama. Levi pushed through them all, his young face set in determined lines. The service hallway smelled like industrial cleaner and abandoned dreams. Tracy's knees finally buckled, and she slid down the wall. Emerald silk pooled around her like spilled paint. The dress that was supposed to make her feel powerful now felt like a costume, like she'd been playing dress-up in a life that was never really hers. He announced another wife, she heard herself say, at my event, wearing my color choice, in front of my donors, like I was nothing, like 14 years was nothing. "He's a monster," Levi said, crouching beside her. His young face was old with rage. "An absolute monster, and I'm going to destroy him." Language, really? You're really going to correct my language right now? Levi grabbed her hands, forcing her to look at him. "Mom, he just erased you in front of everyone who matters. Reduced 14 years of marriage to stood beside me at the beginning like you were a piece of starter furniture he upgraded from." The accuracy of it was more painful than the betrayal. Starter furniture, discarded for newer models. That's exactly what she was to him. Tracy Bailey, perfect wife and invisible architect, finally let herself shatter in a service hallway while her husband celebrated his betrayal in the ballroom she'd built for him. They sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The sounds of the gala continued above them. Music, laughter, celebration. Her event, continuing without her. Her life, continuing without her. "We should go home," Levi said finally, "before he brings her there." The thought of Christian bringing that woman to their house, to their home, made something fierce wake up inside Tracy. A spark of the person she used to be. The person who didn't take things lying down. No, she said, standing up. Her legs shook, but held. We go home, and we wait. If he's going to destroy my life, he's going to have to look me in the eye while he does it. Levi nodded, pride and pain warring on his young face. They drove home in silence. The house looked exactly the same when they pulled up, which felt obscene. Everything should look different. The world should look different. But the lawn was still perfectly manicured. The lights still glowed warm and inviting. The house still stood there like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Tracy sat in the living room she decorated with painstaking care, watching shadows creep across furniture she'd chosen, and waited for the inevitable. Levi sat beside her, silent and coiled like a spring waiting to snap. The grandfather clock in the corner, the one she'd restored herself, spending months, finding the perfect craftsman to repair its mechanism, ticked loud in the silence. You should be in bed, baby. I'm not leaving you alone with him. It's 3 a.m. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. or 3 years from now. I'm not leaving you alone with him. Tracy didn't argue. Couldn't. Her son had become her protector because her husband had become her destroyer. And that role reversal sat in her chest like swallowed glass. The front door opened at 3:27. Tracy would always remember that time. 3:27 in the morning, when her marriage officially ended. Christian walked in first, looking tired and irritated, like they were an inconvenience he'd forgotten to schedule. Then came Camille Brooke. Perfect hair, perfect dress, perfect smile as she surveyed Tracy's home like a buyer at an auction. She moved through the space, touching things, running her fingers along the back of the couch Tracy had spent 3 weekends shopping for, examining the art on the walls, pieces Tracy had chosen, negotiated for, hung herself, picking up the small bronze sculpture on the side table, turning it over, checking the artist's signature, taking inventory of what would soon be hers. Tracy, we need to talk, Christian said in his negotiation voice, the one he used on difficult clients. About which part? The public humiliation, the second wife, or the fact that you brought her into our home? It's not our home. The deed is in my name, solely. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. Legal ownership as weapon. He'd turned their entire marriage into property rights. Tracy felt something inside her calcify. Every soft place she'd maintained for him, hope, love, understanding, hardening into something impenetrable. Camille stepped forward. Her heels clicked on marble floors Tracy had picked out 5 years ago during a renovation Christian had been too busy to attend. Tracy, may I call you Tracy? I know this situation is difficult. Christian's explained everything, and I want you to know I respect what you built here. How generous. I am trying to be generous. Camille's smile never wavered. Professional, practiced, performed. You've been an excellent homemaker. This place is stunning. The organization, the aesthetic, the way everything runs smoothly. It's impressive. Thank you for the performance review of my life. That's not what I meant. Camille's voice took on a patient tone, like speaking to a child. What I'm saying is, since I'll be managing the household now, I could use someone who knows all the systems. Someone familiar with Christian's preferences. What are you suggesting? Well, you know everything already. How Christian likes his coffee. 2 sugars, oat milk, exactly 180 degrees. Which dry cleaner handles his Italian suits versus his everyday wear. His meeting schedule, his dietary restrictions, his morning routine. Camille examined her manicured nails. It would be practical if you stayed on, in some capacity. Stayed on as household staff. My cleaner, specifically. Maybe cook on occasion. Christian mentioned, you make an excellent coq au vin. You could have set hours, proper pay, much more than most ex-wives receive, actually. You'd still have access to the house you clearly love, just in a different role. The silence that followed was so absolute, Tracy could hear her own heartbeat. Could hear the grandfather clock ticking. Could hear Levi's breathing shift from steady to dangerous. You want, Levi said very quietly, each word precise. My mother to clean your toilets in the house she designed. Cook your meals in the kitchen she chose every detail of. Wash your sheets in the bed she shared with him for 14 years. It's a generous offer, Camille said smoothly. Most ex-wives get nothing. This way, your mother maintains some connection to the life she built. Connection. You mean servitude. You mean humiliation. You mean watching my mother scrub floors for the woman who stole her husband. No one stole anyone, Christian interjected. People aren't property. Your mother and I grew apart. You grew into someone else's bed, while she grew into invisibility trying to keep you happy. Levi stood slowly, deliberately. At 14, he wasn't physically imposing, but rage made him larger. And now you want her to literally serve the woman you replaced her with. To go from wife to cleaner, that's your generous offer. Levi, sit down, Christian ordered. No, I'm your father. You're a stranger who shares my DNA. Levi's voice shook with control that was more terrifying than shouting. You brought your mistress into our home and let her offer Mom a job scrubbing her underwear and cleaning her toilets. After everything Mom did for you, after she gave up her career, raised your son, built your entire support system while you built your empire. Your mother made her choices. Her choices. She chose to love you, to trust you, to believe you when you said you were building something together. And this is what you give her in return. A maid's uniform. It's practical, Camille started. It's cruel, Levi cut her off. Deliberately, calculatedly cruel. You don't need a cleaner who knows this house. You want my mother to bow to you, to serve you, to be reminded every single day that you won, that you're the upgraded model and she's been downgraded to hired help. Watch your tone, or what? You'll kick us out. Already doing that. Disinherit me. Don't want your blood money. Hit me. Go ahead. Hit your son for defending his mother. Show Mom exactly what kind of man she wasted 14 years on. Levi, Tracy said softly, finding her voice. It's okay. It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay. He whirled on Christian. You paraded her on stage like a trophy. Announced her like an acquisition. Reduced Mom to a footnote in your origin story. And now you want to complete the humiliation by having her clean up after your new life. The boy needs to learn respect, Camille said coldly. Respect is earned, Levi shot back. And you've earned nothing except contempt. How dare you come into our home, touch our things, sit on our furniture, and offer my mother a position as your maid. Levi's control finally cracked, voice rising. You want the woman who sacrificed everything for him to wash your dirty dishes, iron your clothes, change your sheets after you sleep in her bed. Levi, Christian roared. What? Too honest, too real. You prefer the polite fiction where this is all civilized, where offering Mom a job as the help is generous instead of sadistic. Camille stood, her perfect composure finally cracking. You're being dramatic. I'm offering your mother employment, financial stability. Many women would be grateful. The slap echoed through the house like a gunshot. Levi's hand had moved so fast even he looked surprised. The crack of palm against cheek seemed to hang in the air, suspended in time, the moment everything changed. Camille stumbled backward. Her hand flew to her face. Her eyes went wide with shock. The red mark bloomed across her perfect skin like a brand. You little bastard, she hissed. Touch my son, and I'll kill you. Tracy's voice came out steady, calm, absolutely certain. She hadn't moved from her chair, but something in her posture had shifted. The broken woman was gone. In her place sat someone dangerous. I mean that literally. Camille, you put one finger on my child, and I will end you. Christian knows I'm not bluffing. Tell her, Christian. Tell her about the time someone hurt Levi at school and what I was prepared to do. Christian's face had gone pale. Tracy, this is unnecessary. Tell her. Tracy, tell her, or I will. Christian swallowed hard. A teacher grabbed Levi too roughly in 3rd grade, left bruises. She went to the school with a baseball bat. Would have used it if security hadn't stopped her, and that was for bruises. Tracy said softly. Imagine what I do for real harm. The room fell silent, except for Camille's ragged breathing as she held her reddening cheek. Apologize, Christian said to Levi, though his voice lacked conviction. No, I'm your father. My father died the day you announced her at Mom's charity gala. You're just the stranger who's evicting us. Levi turned to Camille. And you're just the woman who thinks she's won something. But all you've won is a man who will trade you in the moment someone younger appears. Enjoy the house. Enjoy the money. Enjoy the hollow life you're building with a hollow man, but you will never have my mother as your servant. She's worth 1,000 of you. Christian grabbed Levi's arm. His fingers dug in hard enough to leave marks. You will apologize. Or what? You'll hit me. Go ahead. Hit your son for defending his mother. Complete the transformation from failed husband to failed father. Show everyone exactly who you really are. Christian raised his hand. For one terrible second, Tracy thought he might actually strike their son. She moved to intervene, putting herself between them, ready to take the blow herself if necessary. But Levi stayed perfectly still, chin raised, eyes locked on his father's, daring him, waiting, almost wanting the blow because it would prove everything he'd said. Christian's hand trembled in the air. Something flickered in his eyes. Not conscience, exactly. More like recognition that hitting his son would be the final break, the point of no return. The moment he became unredeemable, even to himself. He lowered his hand. Pack your things, he said coldly. Both of you. I want you out by morning. Christian, please, Tracy started, hating the pleading note in her voice even as it escaped, hating that she was still trying to negotiate with someone who'd already decided she was worthless. You heard me. My lawyers will contact you about the settlement. $50,000, full custody of Levi since you're so attached to playing mother. That's more than generous considering you have no legal claim to anything I've built. I built it with you. You were married to me while I built it. There's a difference. Christian's eyes were ice, alien. Nothing of the man she'd loved remained in that cold stare. You contributed nothing of value. You were a decoration, pleasant background noise. Now you're neither pleasant nor wanted. So, you're gone. 14 years. Were apparently 13 years too many. I should have left you after year 1 when I realized you'd never be more than what you were. A small-town girl playing at being sophisticated. Camille is what I should have had from the beginning. Someone who understands ambition, success, the cost of building something extraordinary. The cost. Tracy's voice broke. The cost was me, our son, our family. You built your extraordinary life on our bones. Dramatic as always. This is why successful men need second wives. The first ones always become so bitter, so small, so exhausting with their constant need for validation and attention. As my cleaner, Camille added, her voice cold despite her swelling cheek, she would have earned more than your settlement. But pride apparently matters more than pragmatism. We choose dignity, Levi said quietly, something neither of you would recognize if it slapped you in the face, which, coincidentally, it just did. Christian put his arm around Camille. The gesture was possessive and final. Security will be here at dawn if you're not gone. Don't take anything that isn't specifically yours. Camille will be doing inventory. They walked away together, disappearing up the stairs to the master bedroom, Tracy's bedroom. Tracy's sanctuary, the room where she'd slept alone for months while Christian chose distance over intimacy. The grandfather clock chimed once, loud. The sound of a life ending. Tracy stood in the wreckage and looked around her living room one last time. All the things she'd chosen with such care, all the love she'd poured into making a house a home. All of it still here, but none of it hers. Mom. Levi's voice cracked finally, the teenager breaking through the protective rage. What do? We pack, she said quietly. We leave with what we can carry. And we start over. That's it. We just let him win. No, baby. We let him think he won. There's a difference. She pulled him into a hug, holding tight while the house they'd called home became just a building. We survive first. Then we rebuild. Then When we're strong enough, we show him what he actually lost. Upstairs, Christian's voice carried through the ceiling. Smooth, charming, fully present for the woman who'd replaced her. He wanted you as their cleaner, Levi said, still disbelieving. Their actual cleaner. To scrub their toilets and wash their sheets and cook their meals like you're nothing. Like you're less than nothing. To him, I am less than nothing. I'm an inconvenience he's finally disposing of. You're not nothing, Mom. You're compressed. All that light you had, you've been trying to dim it so he could shine brighter. But compression doesn't make things disappear. It makes them denser, more powerful. He pulled back, holding her face in his hands. And when you finally let yourself expand again, you're going to be devastating. They stood together in the darkness, mother and son, covered in the debris of her marriage. And somewhere between the humiliation and the fury, between the tears and the exhaustion, Tracy made a decision. She would survive this. She would rebuild. And someday, when Christian had forgotten to look over his shoulder, when he felt safest and most untouchable, she would show him exactly what he'd thrown away. Not through revenge, through success so complete, so undeniable, that his victory tonight would taste like ash in his mouth forever. The house would be his. The money would be his. Camille would be his. But he would never again have what he destroyed. A family that loved him. A woman who'd have died for him. A son who'd once thought he was a hero. He'd won everything that didn't matter and lost everything that did. And someday, he'd understand that. Tracy began to pack. Each item she placed in boxes feeling like shedding skin. Levi worked beside her, moving through his room with efficiency that broke her heart. He was 14. He should be, worried about homework and video games, not packing his life into boxes because his father chose a mistress over his family. In hours, they'd walk out of this house with nothing but what they could carry. But they'd walk out free, and freedom, she was beginning to understand, was worth more than any prison, no matter how beautiful its walls. The apartment smelled like old cooking and broken dreams. Tracy stood in the center of the tiny living room, while Levi carried in their third box and tried not to cry. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen the size of a closet, everything she owned reduced to 17 boxes and garbage bags full of clothes Christian's lawyer said she could take. The walls were thin. She could hear the neighbor's television through the shared wall. Some game show with canned laughter that felt obscene in its cheerfulness. This was what rock bottom looked like. Beige walls, stained carpet, a window that overlooked a parking lot instead of the garden she'd maintained for years. It's cozy, Levi said, setting down the box labeled kitchen, even though half of what it contained wouldn't fit in this excuse for a cooking space. It's awful. It's ours. That makes it better than where we were. Tracy wanted to believe him, wanted to find silver linings and fresh starts, and all those empty platitudes people offered when your life fell apart. But standing in this cramped space that cost more per month than she'd ever spent on groceries, all she felt was small. She'd become exactly what Christian had always implied. Nothing without him. Her phone buzzed. Another message from a number she didn't recognize. She'd been getting them constantly since the gala. Reporters, gossip bloggers, people wanting her side of the story, by which they meant they wanted her to provide content for their spectacle. She deleted it without reading. Mom, you need to eat something. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 2 days. You're disappearing. The word choice stung because it was accurate. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. Her clothes hung wrong. Her face in the mirror looked unfamiliar, hollow-eyed and haunted, like a ghost of herself. I'll eat later. That's what you said yesterday. Levi grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You're scaring me. You get up, you stare at walls, you go to bed. You're not living. You're just existing. And I need you to fight this because I can't do it alone. I'm trying. Try harder. His voice cracked. Please, Mom. I need you to try harder, because if you give up, then he wins everything, not just the money or the house or the perfect life. He wins you, and I can't let that happen. Tracy looked at her son, this fierce, beautiful boy who shouldn't have to be the strong one. She felt something shift beneath her ribs, not healing, Not yet. But the first reluctant decision to try. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll try. Right now. Try right now. Levi grabbed her coat. We're going outside. Fresh air. Movement. Basic human activities that prove you're still alive. She let him lead her out of the apartment. Downstairs that smelled like curry and cigarettes. Into streets that pulsed with life she didn't feel part of anymore. They passed storefronts she'd never noticed from inside her luxury car. A laundromat where women folded clothes while children played. A corner store with produce bins outside. Nothing like the organic market where she used to shop. A bus stop where tired people waited, checking phones, living ordinary lives that had once seemed beneath her. This was her world now. Not better or worse, just different, real, instead of performed. Where are we going? She asked. Coffee shop. You like coffee? I used to like coffee. Now I just drink it to stay awake through the exhaustion. Wow, that's really dark, Mom. Sorry. I'll try to be less honest. No, be honest. Just also, be alive. The coffee shop was crowded with people living normal lives. Students studying. Couples laughing. Workers typing on laptops. All of them existing in a world where shame wasn't a physical presence sitting on their chest. 2 lattes, Levi ordered, and whatever pastries you have that look like they contain enough sugar to restart a human heart. The barista smiled at him. Levi smiled back. Easy, natural, like their world hadn't exploded. How did he do that? How did he keep functioning while she was drowning? They sat at a corner table. Levi pushed a chocolate croissant toward her. Eat. It's a medical order from your teenage son, who pretends to know things. Tracy took a bite. It tasted like nothing. Everything tasted like nothing lately. Like her taste buds had given up, along with everything else. I ran into someone from school yesterday, Levi said, stirring his latte with unnecessary focus. Patrick's mom. She crossed the street when she saw me. Literally crossed the street to avoid talking to me. Baby, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for him. His mistakes aren't your shame to carry. Levi finally looked up. But, yeah, it sucks. My friends don't call anymore. Birthday parties I'm not invited to. People I've known since kindergarten suddenly can't make eye contact. Last week, someone wrote homewrecker's son in my locker. Tracy's chest tightened. What? Levi, why didn't you tell me? Because you're barely holding it together, and I didn't want to add to it. But I'm telling you now so you know. We're both dealing with consequences of his choices. You're not alone in this. This is all my fault. It's his fault. He's the one who decided public humiliation was a good relationship strategy. Levi's jaw tightened. I just want you to know that I'm struggling too. That we're in this together. That neither of us is strong enough alone, but maybe we're strong enough together. Tracy reached across the table and grabbed his hand. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. You should be worrying about grades and friends and normal teenage stuff. Not taking care of your mother because your father's a... She paused. Coward, Levi supplied. Narcissist. Walking disaster. Take your pick. Yeah, probably. They smiled at each other. Sad, small, but real. What happens now? Tracy asked. Now we survive. We figure out jobs and money and how to live without him. Levi squeezed her fingers. And Mom, we stop pretending this is temporary. Stop waiting for him to realize his mistake and come back. He's not coming back. And honestly, we don't want him to, don't we? No. We want better. We deserve better. And sitting in this coffee shop with you, actually talking instead of performing. This is already better than any meal in that house ever was. Tracy felt tears slide down her face. Not the silent crying she'd been doing for weeks. Real, ugly, gasping tears that shook her whole body. And Levi held her hand through it, while strangers pretended not to notice. And the world kept turning, and somehow, impossibly, she kept breathing. We're going to be okay, he said quietly. I don't know how or when, but Mom, we're going to be okay. She wanted to believe him, so she decided to try. But what Tracy didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that while she was learning to survive, her son was planning something else entirely. something that would bring Christian Norman's entire empire crashing down. Levi couldn't sleep, so he sent the email instead. His laptop screen glowed in the darkness of his tiny bedroom. The walls were covered with evidence. Printouts, diagrams connecting people his father had betrayed, red string linking names and dates. It looked like something from a crime thriller. Except this was real. The email was already gone, sent to a reporter, evidence of Christian's first crime, forcing out a partner through forged signatures. By morning, it would be news. Still awake, Tracy stood in his doorway, wearing an old robe, looking thinner every day. "Can't sleep," Levi said, not closing his laptop. "Not hiding anymore. What are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago." She noticed the walls, her eyes scanning his obsessive documentation. "Levi, talk to me. You've been different, distant." Levi turned the laptop toward her. Months of work, displayed in folders. Early investors. Dad screwed. Former partners. Questionable deals. Evidence of fraud. Each meticulously organized. "I've been researching Dad. Everything about his deals, the people he screwed over, and 5 minutes ago, I started using it." Tracy went still. "What did you do?" "Sent evidence to a reporter. Tomorrow, the Patterson partnership fraud goes public. Dad forged signatures to cut him out of millions." Levi's voice was steady. "Adult, that's just the beginning." "Levi, look at this." He opened another folder. Bank transfers. Offshore accounts. Messages about finishing the job. Camille is stealing from him. Has been, since the beginning. She's not in love with him. She's robbing him blind. "How did you?" "I went for visitation last week. She ignored me. Dad's office was unlocked." Levi met her eyes, defiant. "I photographed everything, made it prosecutor ready, and tonight I posted it anonymously online. She'll see it. Panic. Run within 48 hours with whatever she can grab. Dad will wake up to empty accounts and a missing wife." Tracy's hands trembled. "This is dangerous. This is justice." Levi opened another screen. Dad's early partners, the ones he cut out. They're filing lawsuits tomorrow. 17 of them. Same law firm. Same day. Coordinated. How? Robert Hayes. He's been waiting 12 years since Dad stole his algorithm. He just needed someone with inside information to coordinate the attack. Levi's jaw tightened. "I gave him everything." "Levi, revenge is poison. This isn't revenge. It's consequences." His voice cracked. "Mom, he destroyed us publicly, and you were just going to take it, going to accept some minimum wage job and wait for some perfect moment that would never come. We could have used it strategically. When? After you've faded completely. After you've accepted being nothing while he's moved on." Levi pulled up his email. Responses already flooding in from journalists. "It's done. The reporter has the story. Camille will see the fraud posts. The lawsuits file at 9 in the morning. By tomorrow night, Dad loses everything." Tracy stared at the screen. At the methodical destruction her 14-year-old son had orchestrated. "I know you want me to be better than him," Levi said quietly. "But being better wasn't protecting you. Being better was letting him win. So I chose to be worse. To be exactly as ruthless as he is, except aimed at him instead of innocent people. What if he retaliates?" Levi opened one last folder. "Mom's protection. Everything here proves you knew nothing. That this was all me. A teenager's rage with Wi-Fi access. If he comes after you, this protects you." He closed the laptop. "I thought of everything, Mom. Because someone had to. You did this for me. I did this for justice. For the universe to make sense. For every night you've cried yourself to sleep thinking you weren't enough, when he was the one who was nothing." She pulled him close, and Levi collapsed against her, shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now we wait. By morning, his phone will be ringing. Reporters, lawyers, Camille packing her bags." Levi pulled back. "I know you wanted to heal instead of hurt. But Mom, sometimes healing requires removing the infection. and he was infecting everything. You're 14 years old. Age doesn't matter when someone's drowning. You grab whatever weapon you can find. Tracy's phone buzzed. A text from an old college friend. Angela Hayes, turn on the news tomorrow morning. Your son just changed everything. Robert says the algorithm fraud is finally coming home. Tracy looked at Levi. The algorithm was your father's first fortune, built on stolen code, and tomorrow, everyone will know. Are you angry with me? Levi's voice was quiet. No, baby. I'm terrified of what you've become, but not angry. She held his face in her hands. You did what I couldn't. Someone had to. They sat together in darkness while across the city, Christian slept next to a woman already planning her escape, in a house built on crimes about to be exposed, dreaming of an empire that was already falling. Levi had pulled the trigger. The bullets were already in flight, and for the first time since the gala, Tracy felt something other than sadness. She felt the ground shifting, the careful balance of power Christian had maintained through fear and wealth beginning to crack. Her son had given her the one thing she'd never had in her marriage. Leverage, real, devastating leverage, already deployed, already working. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, they weren't losing. Christian Norman woke up Tuesday morning to 17 missed calls. His phone was vibrating so violently it had fallen off the nightstand. He reached for it, still half asleep. Camille's side of the bed was cold. She must have gotten up early, probably planning something for the house. Their house. His new life. The first call was from his accountant. What? Christian answered, not bothering with pleasantries. Mr. Norman, we have a serious problem. The man's voice was shaking. Someone's been moving money from your accounts. Small amounts at first, but it's escalated. Offshore companies, shell corporations. With your authorization, sir, we're talking millions. Christian sat up. That's impossible. I sign everything. That's the problem. These signatures are yours. Or very good forgeries. We need forensic accountants immediately. No authorities yet. How long has this been happening? Based on records, at least 2 years. Possibly from the beginning of... The accountant paused. Possibly from when you started your relationship with Ms. Brooke. From the beginning of Camille. No. She loved him. She'd chosen him. This had to be someone else. A hacker. Corporate espionage. A disgruntled employee. Send me everything, Christian said, voice hollow. I'll review it privately. Sir, you need professionals. Send me everything. Now. He hung up and sat in the silence of the master bedroom. Tracy's bedroom. The room she'd designed with soft grays and warm whites. The room he'd brought another woman into like it meant nothing. The bathroom door was closed. Steam seeped from underneath. Camille was in the shower. Christian opened his laptop. The files from his accountant were already arriving. Encrypted, password protected. He opened them with shaking hands. Transaction after transaction. Small at first. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Then larger. 50,000, 100,000, 250,000. Always from different accounts. Always laundered through shell companies with legitimate-sounding names. The offshore accounts were under names he didn't recognize, but the authorizations all bore his signature. Forged. Perfectly forged. She'd planned this. Meticulously. Completely. Total extraction. Christian's phone buzzed. Lawsuit notification. Then another. Then 3 more, in rapid succession. Old partners. Early investors. People he'd pushed out years ago. Suddenly unified with the same law firm. Documentation he'd thought buried forever. Evidence he'd assumed would stay hidden. Someone had organized this. Weaponized his past with strategic precision. His phone lit up with a news alert. Billionaire Christian Norman accused of fraud in early partnership. Former partner claims forged signatures. Then another. Norman empire built on stolen algorithm. Original creator speaks out. Then another, and another, and another. His entire past, every corner he'd cut, every person he'd screwed over. Suddenly front page news. Levi, the teenager he'd dismissed as emotional and dramatic, had been building a case. Collecting evidence, finding Christian's victims and giving them the ammunition they needed. But a child couldn't coordinate legal representation across multiple plaintiffs. Someone with resources had helped. Someone who'd been waiting for exactly this opportunity. Robert Hayes, the man whose algorithm Christian had stolen 12 years ago. The foundation of his first fortune. The crime he thought he'd gotten away with. Christian scrolled through article after article. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, board members, investors, everyone demanding answers. Then he saw it. A Reddit post, anonymous user, detailed breakdown of Camille Brooks' con, bank statements, transfer records, screenshots of messages, everything laid out in excruciating detail. Someone had been in his office, had photographed his private files, had turned his own documentation against him. Levi had visited last week for their court-mandated visitation. Christian had barely looked at him, had left him alone in the house while he took a call. Camille had been out shopping. His son had walked right into his office and stolen everything. Christian stood on shaking legs and walked to the bathroom. He opened the door without knocking. Empty. The shower was running. Steam filled the room, but Camille was gone. He ran to the closet. Her side was empty. Every dress, every shoe, every piece of jewelry. Gone. He checked the safe in the closet floor. The one she shouldn't have known about. Empty. She'd cleaned him out and disappeared. Christian walked through the empty house. His house, the one he'd won in the divorce. The one he'd been so proud to keep. It felt like a mausoleum. His phone rang. The chairman of his board. Christian, we need to talk. Emergency meeting. The board is voting on your position pending investigation into these fraud allegations. This is all lies. A smear campaign. 17 lawsuits filed simultaneously, all with documented evidence. A journalist with emails you allegedly sent. Your own accountant confirming unauthorized transfers. The chairman's voice was cold. This doesn't look like lies, Christian. This looks like consequences. The call ended. Christian sat in his living room. The one Tracy had decorated. Everything still exactly as she'd arranged it, because he hadn't bothered to change anything. Why would he? It was perfect. She'd made it perfect. And he'd thrown her away. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You chose illusion over reality. Hope it was worth it. The message was signed, CB, Camille Brooks' last words. Coldly accurate. He'd destroyed everything real chasing fake. Traded partnership for performance. Sacrificed family for ego. By evening, Christian sat alone scrolling through articles destroying his reputation. Billionaire conned by Mistress. Lawsuits piling. Empire crumbling. One article included a quote from Levi. Actions have consequences, even for people who think they're above them. Christian stared at those words, feeling the full weight of what he'd destroyed. His son, the boy who'd once thought he was a hero, now orchestrating his ruin, and he deserved it. Every lawsuit, every revelation, every humiliation, he'd thrown away everything real chasing something fake. His phone buzzed. Tracy's lawyer. Mr. Norman, my client has evidence regarding Ms. Brooks' fraud. She'll share it in exchange for renegotiating the settlement. She knew. Tracy knew Camille was stealing. Her son had discovered it months ago, and they'd waited, watched, let Christian destroy himself. Mrs. Bailey decided against using it maliciously. However, given circumstances, she feels a more equitable settlement is appropriate. $1 million. Public acknowledgement of her contributions, and formal apology. That's blackmail. That's fairness. You gave her $50,000 after 14 years. She's offering proof that could help with prosecution. She wants recognition. Seems reasonable. It was reasonable. Devastatingly reasonable. I don't have $1 million. Camille took everything. Your accountant mentioned frozen assets from early investments. Enough for settlement, though little else. Tracy would get her settlement from the only clean money he had left. The irony was excruciating. Fine. Draft the papers. The apology needs to be public. Published acknowledgement of what she contributed and what you destroyed. Christian wanted to refuse, but he had nothing left to fight with. Fine. He hung up and sat in silence. Every choice wrong. Every person hurt. Vindicated. Every bridge burned. Impossible to rebuild. Tracy had watched him destroy himself and used information for justice, not revenge. More mercy than he deserved. That mercy cut deeper than vindictiveness. Christian Norman, who'd believed he was untouchable, finally understood what it meant to fall. And it felt like dying while breathing. 6 months later, Tracy Bailey stood in a community center art class holding a paintbrush like a foreign object. Her therapist had suggested it. Create something. Stop protecting yourself from pain and start processing it. So here she was. 2 years old, starting over, learning to take up space again. The instructor was showing them technique, something about light and shadow. Tracy wasn't really listening. She was just moving the brush across canvas, letting color happen without planning or controlling or making it perfect. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. That's beautiful. Tracy turned. A man stood beside her easel. Tall, kind eyes, paint-stained hands. He looked at her work with genuine interest. It's a mess, she said. The best art usually is. I'm Owen Fletcher, Tracy Bailey. His expression shifted slightly. Recognition. Christian Norman's ex-wife. The woman publicly humiliated at the charity gala. She waited for the pity or the curiosity or the judgment. First time here? He asked instead. First time doing anything except surviving. She looked at her painting. Dark blues and grays like drowning. I'm not very good. You're honest. That's better than good. They painted in comfortable silence. Owen worked clay into a running figure, unclear if fleeing or chasing. Tracy added hesitant colors to her canvas, small touches of yellow, hints of light. Why sculpture? She asked. Because you can destroy it and start over without anyone knowing you failed. He looked at her painting. Why the darkness? Because pretending to be okay is exhausting. Owen understood. She could see it in his eyes. He'd been broken too. When class ended, he found himself saying, "Same time next week." She hesitated. Maybe. That's not a no. No, it's not. Over weeks, something grew between them. Not romance. Not yet. Just recognition. Two damaged people learning to create again. Tracy painted lighter colors. Owen's sculptures became less frantic. They talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. My ex-wife left me for my business partner, Owen said one evening over coffee after class. Note said I was too reliable. She needed passion, not comfort. I'm sorry, don't be. She did me a favor, showed me I was with someone who confused drama with depth. He stirred his coffee. But it made me afraid of being boring, of being too steady, of being the safe choice someone settles for until exciting comes along. I spent 14 years making myself smaller so my husband could feel bigger, Tracy said. Now, I'm afraid of taking up space, afraid that wanting things makes me selfish, afraid that being myself is too much. They looked at each other across the table. We're both afraid of being ourselves, Owen said. Yeah, probably. Want to try being afraid together? Tracy smiled. A real smile. The first in months, maybe. That's not a no. No, it's not. 6 weeks later, Tracy's phone rang. Christian. She excused herself from dinner with Owen, watched through the window as her expression shifted from annoyance to something softer. When she returned, she looked troubled. Everything okay? Owen asked, stomach dropping. He wants to talk. Says he made a mistake. Wants reconciliation. Owen's stomach dropped further. Here it was. Steady Owen, losing to complicated Christian. What did you say? I said I'd think about it. You should do what feels right, Owen heard himself say. Chest caving. It's not my place. We're just friends who paint. Wow. Okay. Her expression shuddered. Good to know where we stand." They finished in awkward silence. Owen drove her home, hating himself for passivity, but not knowing how to fight without seeming desperate. That night, he called his therapist. "I almost lost her. Maybe did. And I just let it happen. What did you want to do? Tell her she's crazy to consider going back. Tell her I'm falling in love. That I know I'm boring, but I'm reliable. Why didn't you?" Jennifer said I was clingy, suffocating. "So I've spent 6 years being so independent, I'm basically absent. You're overcorrecting. Be honest. Tell Tracy how you feel without making it her responsibility to fix your fear." The next day, Owen showed up at Tracy's apartment unannounced. "I need to tell you something. Just listen, okay?" She nodded, stepping aside. "I like you. A lot. That terrifies me because my ex left me for being predictable. I've spent 6 years trying to prove her wrong by being more stable, probably proving her right. But I don't want fear to keep me from showing up. So I'm telling you, if you want Christian, I understand. He's your history. I'm just the guy who sculpts. But if there's any chance you want to build something with me, real and steady, and maybe boring, then I'm asking for that chance. Not competing with him, but because we could be good together, if you'll risk it." Tracy stared, then laughed. "Owen, I told Christian no, immediately. Then mentioned you, someone kind who actually sees me, and he lost his mind. That troubled look was realizing he was jealous of you. Oh, so my declaration was sweet and unnecessary. No." She stepped closer. "You're not boring. You're grounding. Boring is predictable because nothing's happening. Grounding is steady because something real is being built. I've had enough chaos. I'll take grounding." Owen pulled her into a kiss, tentative, then certain. "So we're doing this." "Yeah, even though I'm terrified. Especially then. It means you care enough to risk it." They held each other, two damaged people choosing to build from broken pieces. For the first time in 6 years, Owen felt like being steady was enough. Maybe it always had been. He just needed someone who valued foundations over fireworks. 5 years later, the auction notice arrived on a Tuesday morning. Tracy Fletcher. She'd taken Owen's name quietly, privately, in a ceremony with just Levi, and Maya present, stared at the legal document while Owen made breakfast in their kitchen. Not grand, not marble, just warm and real, and theirs. The letterhead was from the bank. The property listed was the house she'd once called home. Christian Norman Estate. Foreclosure auction. Minimum bid, $450,000. Significant repairs needed. "You okay?" Owen read over her shoulder. "I don't know." She set down the paper, hands steady. "I built that house. Every room. Every detail. And now, it's being sold for parts. You could buy it." The suggestion hung between them. With her consulting firm thriving and the settlement invested wisely, she could afford it. She could reclaim what had been taken. Why would I want it? Closure, maybe. Or justice. Owning the thing that was supposed to be yours. Tracy thought about it. Really thought about it. Then picked up her phone. "Levi, can you meet me somewhere today? There's something we need to do." They stood outside the house that had once been everything. The lawn Tracy had maintained was overgrown, paint peeling from shutters she'd chosen. The garden she'd cultivated had returned to wilderness. Christian had let it rot after losing everything. Couldn't afford maintenance. Couldn't bear to sell until the bank forced his hand. "It looks haunted," Levi said quietly. 19, now about to graduate with honors, engaged to Maya. He'd become everything Christian had never been. Present, honest, kind. "It is haunted," Tracy replied, "by who we used to be." The realtor, young, eager, unaware of the history, unlocked the door. "Take your time. The seller is motivated." The seller. Not Christian, just the seller, reduced to a transaction. Inside, the house felt like a museum of their former life. Furniture covered in sheets. Dust dancing in light through windows Tracy had spent hours choosing. The grandfather clock she'd restored sat silent in the corner, its mechanism finally broken. They walked through rooms that held memories like ghosts. The kitchen where Tracy had bled making his favorite dinner. The dining room where she'd set tables for meals he never attended. The living room where Camille had offered her a position as her own replacement. "Mom, look." Levi stood in what had been his room. The walls still bore faint marks from the revenge diagrams he'd created. Ghost traces of red string and fury, and a boy trying to protect his mother. "I was so angry," he said. "I wanted to destroy him. You did, in a way. You and everyone else he'd hurt. You just did it with truth instead of violence." They climbed the stairs to the master bedroom. The bed was gone, but the closet doors stood open, empty. No trace of the clothes Tracy had carefully organized, or the suits Christian had valued more than family. On the floor, partially hidden by dust, lay a photograph. Their family portrait from 10 years ago. Before Camille, before the fall, before Christian decided success meant erasure. Tracy picked it up. They looked happy. Were they? Or had they just been performing happiness so long they'd forgotten the difference? "There's someone here," the realtor called from downstairs. Tracy and Levi descended to find Christian in the foyer. He looked older, smaller, wearing a suit that had seen better days. His hair was gray now. No money for the treatments that had kept him looking young. His hands shook slightly as he saw them. "Tracy, Levi, Christian." They stood in the foyer of the house that had witnessed their destruction, and the silence held everything. 14 years of marriage, public humiliation, private devastation, the slow work of rebuilding. "You're here to buy it," Christian said. "Not a question." "I'm here to see it," Tracy corrected, "to remember why I don't need it. I destroyed everything." His voice was hollow. "This house, our family, my entire life, for nothing." "Not nothing," Levi said, his voice steady. "Adult. For Camille, for ego, for the illusion that you could trade up from people like they were assets." Christian flinched. "I've been in therapy, real therapy." His voice cracked. "I finally understand what I threw away." "Good for you," Levi said. "Really, I hope it helps. But your healing isn't our responsibility. We've done our own work. Without you, I know." Christian looked around the empty house, this monument to his choices. "I just wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not for the settlement or because lawyers made me, but because I finally understand what I threw away." He looked around the empty house. "I had everything. A wife who loved me, a son who admired me, a home that was actually home, and I burned it all down because I was afraid of getting old. Afraid of being ordinary. Afraid that being loved wasn't enough if I wasn't also envied. And now," Tracy asked, "now I live in a studio apartment, work consulting, because no one will hire me full-time, eat dinners alone, count pills for anxiety, have nightmares about Camille laughing as she destroyed me." He met her eyes. "I got exactly what I deserved, a life as empty as I made yours." "My life isn't empty," Tracy said quietly. "It never was. You just convinced me it was because full lives threatened you. Happy wives don't need rescuing. Confident women don't need managing. So you made me small and called it love. I know. No, you know you were wrong. That's not the same as knowing what you did." Tracy's voice stayed level, but Levi heard the steel underneath. "You didn't just leave me, Christian. You tried to erase me. Publicly, deliberately. You wanted me to disappear so completely that you brought another woman into our bed and offered me a job as her cleaner in my own home. I was cruel. You were something worse. You were indifferent. Cruelty requires caring enough to want to hurt someone. You just didn't see me as human enough to consider my pain." Christian looked at his son. "Levi, I know you'll never forgive me." "I forgave you years ago," Levi interrupted. "Not for you. For me. Because carrying that anger was killing me slowly, and you'd already taken enough." He paused. "But forgiveness isn't reconciliation. I forgave the man you were. That doesn't mean I want the man you are in my life. I'm your father. No, Owen is my father. He showed up, taught me to drive, attended my games, listened to Maya's terrible poetry without laughing, helped me with applications, celebrated my acceptance letters. Levi's voice was calm, matter of fact. You're just biology, Christian. Owen is my dad. The words landed like physical blows. Christian's face crumpled. I'm selling the house to pay debts, he said finally, voice barely audible. Camille left me with nothing. The lawsuits took the rest. This is all I have left, and the bank owns most of it. I know, Tracy said. You could buy it. It should have been yours anyway. No, it was never mine. It was a stage where I performed your life. I don't want stages anymore. She looked around the empty rooms one last time. I want real floors that creak, real walls that need repainting, real life that isn't perfect but is actually mine. She turned to leave, then stopped. Christian, that photo you're holding, keep it. Remember what you had. Maybe it'll help you build something better next time, with someone new. Someone who never knew who you used to be. There won't be anyone new. I'm 54, broke and broken. Who would want that? Someone who sees you're human, who values growth over image, who wants a partner, not a performance. Tracy's voice softened slightly. You're capable of being better. You just have to decide if better is enough when you can't be best. She walked out, Levi beside her, leaving Christian alone in the empty house. Outside, the sun was setting, casting everything in gold light that made even decay look beautiful. You okay? Levi asked. Yeah. I thought seeing him would hurt, but it just felt finished, like closing a book I'd already read. You could have destroyed him in there, really twisted the knife. What would be the point? He's already destroyed. Anything I added would just be cruelty for cruelty's sake. She looked back at the house one more time. Besides, the best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's being happy without them. Completely, genuinely happy. Are you happy? Tracy thought about Owen waiting at home, about her thriving business, about Levi becoming a man she was proud of, about Tuesday dinners and Saturday sculpture classes and all the small moments that added up to a life. Yes, I'm happy. Not perfect happy, not performance happy. Just real happy, boring happy, the kind that lasts. They drove away, leaving the house to its ghosts and Christian to his emptiness. In the rearview mirror, Tracy saw him standing in the doorway, small and alone, surrounded by the ruins of what he'd built and destroyed. An empire of ash. 10 years later, the call came at 3 in the morning. Mrs. Fletcher, this is St. Mary's Hospital. You're listed as Christian Norman's emergency contact. He's had a heart attack. He's stable, but asking for you. Tracy sat up, instantly awake. What happened? Cardiac episode. He's stable now, but asking for you. She looked at Owen, who was already awake, already understanding. Go, he said simply. Levi should know. The hospital room was white and sterile. Christian looked small in the bed. Older, fragile, hooked to machines that beeped with mechanical indifference. You came, he whispered. You put me as your emergency contact. There's no one else. Hasn't been for years. He struggled to sit up. I need to tell you something. Before, I can't. Christian, save your strength. No. Listen, please. His eyes were desperate. I loved you. I need you to know that. I loved you completely. I just loved myself more, and that poisoned everything good we had. I know. I see you sometimes, in magazines. Your company, your success, your family. Tears rolled down his weathered face. You became everything you were meant to be, without me, despite me, and I'm so proud of you. I have no right to be, but I am. Christian, you were the love of my life, Tracy. I was just too stupid to know it until I'd thrown you away. He closed his eyes. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being the last good thing I get to see. Tracy sat with him in silence. This man who'd been everything and nothing, who'd built empires and destroyed them, who'd confused ownership with love until he owned nothing and loved too late. I forgive you, she said finally. Not for you. For me. So I can let this go completely. I don't deserve. No, you don't. But I do. I deserve to be free of you. Even the anger. Even the hurt. All of it. Levi appeared in the doorway. Tall, successful, married now with a child of his own. He looked at Christian with eyes that held no anger. Just distance. Levi, you came. Mom asked me to. Your daughter. I saw the announcement. She's beautiful. She is. She has Mom's eyes and Owen's patience. The exclusion was deliberate but not cruel. Just fact. Christian had no part in this grandchild's life. No claim to this continuation of family. I'm glad you're happy, Christian said to both of them. That's all I wanted to say. That, and I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for everything I took from you. They stayed until he fell asleep. In the hallway, Levi took his mother's hand. You okay? Yeah. It's just, he's so alone. He did it to himself. Levi squeezed her hand. That's the price of treating people as disposable. Eventually you run out of people. They walked out together into morning light. The world continued. Traffic flowed. People lived their small, important lives. Mom, what Owen and I have, the way he's been my dad, that's real, right? That's what love looks like. Yes, baby. That's exactly what love looks like. Showing up. Staying present. Building instead of performing. Then I did okay. We did okay. We did better than okay. We did real. They drove home to their real lives, leaving Christian to his medical machinery and his regrets. He would recover this time, would live another few years in his small apartment with his small life, understanding finally what small really meant. And somewhere in the city, in a house with creaking floors and walls that needed repainting, Owen. Fletcher was making breakfast for his granddaughter while his wife built empires of her own design. And his stepson became the father Christian never was. The empire of ash had blown away on wind. What grew in its place was smaller, quieter, and infinitely more valuable. It was real. Tracy Bailey Fletcher stood in her office, with her name on the door and her achievements on the walls. She looked at the framed article from that morning's business journal. From Ashes, How Tracy Fletcher Built a Consulting Empire After Public Humiliation. The interview had been honest, brutally so. She'd talked about Christian's betrayal, about Camille's cruelty, about being offered a position as a cleaner in her own home. But mostly, she'd talked about rebuilding, about her son's fierce protection, about Owen's steady love, about learning that survival wasn't enough. You had to choose to thrive. Her phone buzzed. Levi, just read the article. I'm proud of you, Mom, for telling the truth. For owning your story. She typed back, I learned from the best, a 14-year-old boy who refused to let his mother disappear. That boy had a good teacher, a woman who showed him that breaking isn't the same as broken. Tracy smiled. Owen appeared in her doorway with coffee. 2 sugars, exactly how she liked it. Busy day. Always, but good busy. Building something busy, not performing for someone busy. He kissed her forehead. Dinner tonight. That new Italian place. Boring Tuesday date night. The very best kind. After he left, Tracy looked out her window at the city. Somewhere out there, Christian was